Good evening, Suffolk County. Congressman Nick LaLota here. Thank you so much for joining my third telephone town hall I've had since I got sworn in. This is going to be about a half hour, 45 minutes, everybody. We're going to go into some issues I've been working on here in Washington. We're going to take your questions and your feedback, and we're going to wait for a few more people to join the call. As we go on throughout the night, if you have a question, please press *3 if you'd like to ask a question, and press *6 if you'd like to sign up for our newsletter. So once again, *3 for questions, *6 for our newsletter. And just to provide you some background and some setting, I'm sitting in my Washington, D.C. office. I'm in here in the Longworth House office building. I know it's hot back on Long Island. It's hot here in Washington. I want to thank you guys for joining this call tonight. Hope you're staying cool and hydrated. Hope you're spending the night with your families or doing something that you find productive as well. The last time I held one of these was in early June, about 45 days ago. So I want to use tonight as an opportunity to give you an update for what I've been working on in our nation's capital between then and now. And when I ran for Congress about a year ago, I committed to everybody to follow my own conscience, the Constitution and the will of my constituents, and the commitment to America. And as you may know, if you've been following along some of my social media, and I have a Facebook page and all that other stuff, and you can find me there, and a website and all as well. But you'd probably be following that the commitment to America means a lot to me. And it's a set of promises and ideas that I believe will get our country back on the right track. And the commitment to America is based upon 4 pillars. First, that our nation's economy is strong. Second, that we are keeping our communities safe. Third, that we create a future for our children built on freedom. And fourth, that we hold our government and our officials accountable to we the people. So just drilling down a little bit quickly into that. And again, if you want to ask a question, press *3. If you want to sign up for our newsletter, press *6. And I'll go on for another minute or so. We'll start to answer some questions after that. But the commitment to America is very important to me. Again, that first pillar is about our nation's strong economy. I'm here to fight inflation, lower the cost of living. I'm here to make America energy independent, and specifically reduce our gas prices. I want to strengthen our supply chain and end our dependence on China. Those are key pillars to help our nation's economy become strong. I also know how important it is for us and our families to feel safe in our communities. I think we should secure the border and combat illegal immigration. I want to reduce crime and protect public safety. We have some awesome police forces all throughout Suffolk County. The county police department, some towns have their own, villages have their own as well, and we're all in this together to help keep our communities safe and protect our public safety. We also have to defend our national security. Proud to sit on the Armed Services Committee doing some of that, and maybe after we get a call or two, we might go into a question or two on that. The third pillar, the third of 4 pillars on the commitment to America, is ensuring that we create a future for our children built upon freedom. That's inherent in being Americans, that we have our freedoms. I want to make sure that every student can succeed, and I want to give parents a choice in their children's public education. I want to help achieve longer, healthier lives for Americans. And part of that is confronting entities like big tech and demanding fairness for how we conduct our free and fair speech. The fourth pillar, and again, before I go into the fourth, again, I want to say *3. If you have any questions, please, this hopes to be an interactive half hour, 45 minutes here tonight. Press *3 if you'd like to ask a question, anything related, hopefully to the federal government, but if you have something else, maybe we'll give that a shot too. But *3 if you have a question, *6 if you'd like to sign up for our newsletter. We promise not to spam you. I think we send things out once a week, sometimes maybe twice a week. It's short, it's concise. Hopefully it's informative to you. *6 if you like our newsletter. But again, I'm here to ensure that we make our lives more affordable, safer. These are the things I'm focused on first and foremost in our nation's capital. And the fourth of 4 pillars of the commitment to America is ensuring that we have a government accountable to the people it serves. I want to help preserve our constitutional freedoms. I want to hold Washington officials accountable, and I want to restore the people's voice here. We live in a representative democracy, a constitutional republic. I believe that the foundation of that is that each one of my constituents' voices are heard. We can take your feedback many different ways. This teletown hall is one of them. My social media is another. Sending me an email is another. Calling my office, writing me a letter. We interact with our constituents on a daily basis. I have a hardworking staff, both in the district office and Hauppauge here in the nation's capital, folks who are quite responsive to constituents' needs. We've done a lot of constituent services. I think we're going to get into that later on in the call about some of the things that my district office does for constituents, be it passports. We've gotten a lot of those lately. You may have read a little bit in Newsday about the good work we're doing, helping facilitate folks' passports. We've helped with VA claims, some stuff with the IRS, immigration issues, where we run the gamut on federal issues. So I believe that a key part of holding this office and serving my constituents is having good constituent services, and maybe we'll get a little more into that later on. Hopefully, operator, we're going to have a question or two. But before we get to that, I'm going to tell you that over my first few months, the commitment to America has served as my North Star. Along with the Constitution and your feedback, I want to help make this country be a better place for all of our families. So let's get into it. If you're not in the queue and you want to ask a question, please press *3 for a question if you want to ask one. And again, if you want to get onto that newsletter, please press *6. So operator, please put through the first question.
All right, Congressman, this one was submitted early ahead of time online. This is from Jim in Mount Sinai. I've seen a lot in the news about SALT. What's going on? What are the updates? We got screwed in 2017. We need some relief on that.
Awesome. Thanks for the question. And listen, I get this a lot. I don't care what political party you identify with, or if you don't identify with the party at all, where you live, east, west, north, south in this district. Property taxes, sales taxes, just the general cost of living on Long Island is out of control. It's been very expensive for decades, but with higher property and state income taxes and post-pandemic higher prices driving up the cost of groceries, housing, energy, and just about everything, I know how important it is to fight for a stronger economy and fighting inflation. And let me tell you this. Before I'm a Republican, but way before I'm a Republican and before anything else, I'm loyal to my district, I'm loyal to my state, I'm loyal to my country. And I understand one of the things that my district requires and our state requires is fighters in Congress who want to get our SALT back. Yeah, we did get screwed. And some folks in this town aren't so eager to undo that. But I, together with a bipartisan group of lawmakers here in Congress, generally from these high-tax blue states. There's like 20 of us in the SALT caucus, and again, SALT state and local tax. The 20 of us, and it's a bipartisan endeavor, from New York, New Jersey, and California for the most part, we're very focused on chipping away at this and getting a more reasonable accommodation on SALT. Now, we used to be able to, as New Yorkers, deduct an unlimited amount from our federal taxes that we paid into our state and local taxes. And right now it's capped at $10,000. I have a bill that would increase from $10,000 to $60,000 for individuals, $120,000 for families. That would, I think, be a reasonable start back to where we need to be. That would make whole about 98% of first district constituents. Anybody making about $1 million or less per year would be made fully whole. I think that would be good progress. And what I've said is this. There's a Republican tax package out there that my party wants me to vote for. It has tax breaks, it has tax incentives, it has other things which would stimulate the economy, things I'm eager to support. I think that is good. A smaller government with lesser taxes is supposed to be good for our country, and there's provisions in this proposed tax package that I want to vote for. However, with your feedback, and we've done a couple of polls, and we're going to do a poll here in a second where you guys can dial in and tell me if you agree with my position in a moment or two. But here's my position, and here's what, based upon the feedback you've given me. I've done a mass text to the district a time or two about this, and I've done an email about this as well. I've asked you all, should I vote against that otherwise good package that has tax breaks, tax cuts, tax incentives, and other things that would help create jobs, stimulate the economy, and otherwise be good for Long Island and specifically the country? Should I withhold my support until and unless we get a reasonable accommodation on SALT? And we've done this a couple times. We've sent this blast text out. We've sent out an email. On the text, 75% of my constituents said, Nick, hold out. Don't give your support for that bill unless we get a reasonable accommodation on SALT. When we did a text message, 75% said hold out. And when we did the email blast, 90% of you said hold out. Don't give your vote until we get some fairness on SALT. I'm with you guys. I'm going to hold my vote out. Now, some folks in this town, and specifically in my own party, are not too happy with me on that. They want me to cave in. They want some other Long Islanders like Garbarino and D'Esposito to cave in, but we're not caving in, folks. So here's what I propose to you. If you agree with my position, if you think that I should withhold my vote for this tax package that otherwise I think is good, if you agree with the position I should hold out until we get a reasonable accommodation on SALT, press 1. And I respect you if you disagree. If you disagree with my position and you think that a half a loaf on this is good enough, that I should take a win, provide my party my vote, and move on to fight another day. If you think that's the better alternative, God bless. You're entitled to your opinion. This is what the democracy is all about. Press 2 if you have a different opinion. But again, press 1 if you think I should keep on holding out. And let me tell you what, guys, it's getting a little awkward here in Washington. The Ways and Means Committee, the chairman specifically, is providing some heat upon me and a few others. You know, I'm just a freshman, but I can hold strong. My family's been through a lot. I got some good red blood in me, so I can hold out. But I need to know where you guys are at on that. So if you agree with my position, please press 1. And if you think there's a better course, go ahead and press 2, and I'll take your feedback. And at some point in time during the call, my staff's going to hand me a sticky and going to tell me how you guys all voted. So that's what I got for SALT. I'm fighting. I'm in it to win it. A member of Congress from Long Island, from a different district, said in the past, "No SALT, no deal." I'm gonna amend that slightly. I'm gonna say no SALT, no deal for real. I'm in it to the end. Until you guys tell me to give in, I'm in it to the end. So that's where I'm at on SALT. We're going to move on to another question. Operator, do we have another question, please? Somebody's telling me Janice from Smithtown. Can you please put Janice from Smithtown through, please? Janice, are you with us?
Yes.
Hey, Janice, go ahead with your question, please.
My question was in regards to women having the freedom of choice with their own bodies, as they always have, that they fought for years. That was one of my questions. And my second question was regarding helping seniors and Social Security and such, and making it so that we can be here for our kids.
Thanks so much, Janice. Appreciate your question. And listen, on abortion, this is a tough topic in America. There's some strong opinions out there. Some folks are quite polarized on this issue, and I appreciate where the passion is on this. The pro-choice folks are very convicted in their beliefs, and the pro-life folks as well. And everybody sees this a certain way, and a lot of the country is quite polarized in this. But let me tell you where I'm at in this. And I've said this many times, and I'll say again. I join the 72% of Americans who oppose abortion in the second trimester, as well as 80% of the Americans who oppose abortion in the third trimester. I think, listen, I'm a Republican, but I think there should be exceptions for rape, incest, and in cases in which the mother's life is at risk. I do not oppose abortion in the first trimester. And I also want to touch a little bit on the Dobbs decision, which came out just about a year ago. The Dobbs decision made it very clear that the issue of abortion should be decided on the state level. And when I ran for this office, I told people time and again, I'm not going to Washington to change the abortion laws. I may have my own personal opinions, but the Supreme Court said this is a state issue. This is an issue where if you feel strongly one way or the other, and listen, I said this, I oppose third trimester abortions. I think what's on the books right now in New York is way, way too far. But that's not up, in my opinion, for the federal government to decide. That's up, according to Dobbs and many other logics, that's up for the state legislatures to decide. So those who feel passionate about this issue can count on a couple of things. One, I'm not here to certainly endorse a national abortion ban. I do, like many members of both parties for years and years, insist that federal funds not be used for abortion. Folks have been on the same, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden when he was a senator, and Chuck Schumer for years agreed that federal funds should not be used for abortion. So that's generally where I'm at on that. And Janice, I hope that answers your question on that. On Social Security, I'm going to be clear with you again, too. I will oppose vehemently cuts to Social Security. It's a deal. It's a contract between Americans and their government. Many folks, especially those who are seniors now, spent decades paying into Social Security on the expectation that that check would be a predictable number coming to them every month to help them live in dignity in retirement. I am for that contract. I am not for trying to amend that contract. Government should live up to its promise. And I think when I get this question a lot. When I get it, I think about my mother-in-law, Pam, who insists, and she's a fiscal conservative, but she reminds me routinely that government made this deal, especially with seniors, to allow them to live in retirement and dignity. I'm here to stick up for those rights, Janice, so you can count on me. Fortunately, there's only a few folks in town who want to change that, but to the extent there are any, Janice, you can count on me to oppose them as well. In a moment, we're going to go on to a new question here, but if you have a question, press *3 if you have a question. If you want to sign up for that newsletter, and I promise you, I won't spam you a bunch. It'll be informative. It'll be concise. If you want that newsletter, press *6. And let me tell you some results of that first poll, and I'm happy you guys are with me on this. In the results of the first poll, where I told you that I would fight tooth and nail, even my own party, to fight against a tax package that does not have SALT, 88% of you agree that's the right position. Love it. I appreciate knowing that I'm on the right track with 88% of my constituents. Now listen, I respect the 12% of you said book a win, take some tax incentives where you get them, live to fight another day. I'm going to keep on fighting. I think that we can win in both lanes. I think that we can get some good economic incentives overall, while at the same time getting an accommodation on SALT. But stay tuned. The fight is real. I'm happy to be fighting it with some members of the SALT caucus. A couple of Long Islanders in particular, Representatives Garbarino and D'Esposito, have a position very similar to mine, and we're not caving in. And those of you who are tracking the dynamics in Washington with a very small majority here, when a few folks band together and insist on something, they've been getting their way in this town, and we understand that power. We take it seriously, and we know that affordability on Long Island, the property taxes, the income taxes, the sales taxes is out of control, and we know that the SALT means a whole heck of a lot. So I'm in there fighting as well. Operator, I think we're ready for our next question. Can you put the next caller through? I think it's Ginny, all the way out in East Hampton. Can you put Ginny through, please?
Hello?
Hey, Ginny, go ahead with your question, please.
Okay, yes, Congressman. I just wanted to know, I haven't heard very much lately about the problems at our southern border, and I'm wondering what you are doing or what your position is on this, and what Congress is doing, if anything. I know we're in a...
All right, Ginny, thanks so much. I think you got cut off there, but I think I heard the essence of your question on the border. And I sit on the Homeland Security Committee, and much of the Homeland Security Committee's focus is on the border. Some have likened the Congress to a college where your committee assignment is like your major. You spend a lot of time in your major. I spend a lot of time on the Homeland Security Committee delving into this issue, Ginny. So it's important to you. It's important to me. I'm spending a lot of time on it. And I tell you what, I think, Ginny, for far too long, law enforcement and border communities have been hung out to dry thanks to broken immigration and a broken asylum system. And it's unfortunate. The Biden administration seems to have an open border agenda, and Americans across the country, and especially in New York, are being impacted. Every state now has become a border state. And drugs and people are pouring across our southwest border. Cartels are becoming more bold, and crime is on the rise in our communities, even Long Island. And what's making it worse, Ginny, is the sanctuary city policies that some of these blue states have. And I hate to be a partisan about this. There was a time at which our border security was a nonpartisan issue. And you hear me use some words, you hear me be strong about this. You go ahead and Google President Clinton's State of the Union border security. And what he was saying just a couple of decades ago is exactly what most Republicans are saying these days, that we need stronger border security. Now, specific on policy, I support keeping Title 42 in place. I support increasing funding for Customs and Border Protection, building more physical barriers, investing in technology and vehicles, and hiring more asylum judges. Those are the things I think, Ginny, that Congress can do definitively to ensure that we make progress on this issue. But what's absent is we need leadership from the executive branch. We need the president to acknowledge this is a real issue, and we need Secretary Mayorkas to execute on it. He has a responsibility to secure that border. He's failing miserably day in and day out in that duty. It's so unfortunate. We've had him in front of our committee several times. Unfortunately, I hate to be a pessimist, but it's like talking to a brick wall a lot of the times. We need somebody new in there, somebody with respect for the rule of law. And listen, we need legal immigration too, and maybe later on the call, we'll go into some immigration priorities. We are a nation of immigrants. My great-grandparents came here from Italy and Germany and Ireland, and they helped build this great country and helped provide for families and became a strong part of the fabric of this great country. We need legal immigration. What's going on right now on our southwest border, I think, is abhorrent. It's anti-American. I visited the border, Ginny, twice since coming to Congress. I've spoken directly to law enforcement and local officials about the challenges they're facing and what Congress can do to help. And I'm hard at work on the Homeland Security Committee every day, ensuring that our law enforcement officers have every resource they need to do their jobs safely and effectively. I was proud to work with my colleagues on the House Homeland Security Committee to put forth H.R. 2, our Secure the Border Act of 2023. We worked tirelessly for months to dot every I, cross every T to ensure that we gave the Homeland Security Committee the physical barriers, the technology, the staffing, the training, everything that we should have at our southern border to secure it. But again, I think that we need better leadership there. As a little aside, or something that's correlated to this issue, I helped recently pass 2 bills that would prevent public schools and colleges from being used to house migrants. I don't think that we ought to be mixing unvetted migrants with our school-age children. And as you may have seen, Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul have been proposing to house the illegal and unvetted migrants as they get welcomed into this country in our children's schools. I think that's wrong. And this is a tough subject, but I think we got to draw the line in a couple of different places. And I just don't think that schools where our kids are, and I'm a proud father, my wife and I have 3 awesome children who go to grade school. We just don't think that, and the majority of Congress does not think that our public schools ought to be places where we put unvetted adult migrants. Prioritizing those who broke the law and who are manipulating our asylum laws and have not been vetted for security issues over young students, veterans, homeless, and individuals with disabilities, or any other law-abiding citizen is simply unacceptable. That's what they're doing in New York. Right now, the homeless shelters in New York have more migrants in them than they have American citizens. Now, both are problems. Both are worthy of some sort of solution. But I think that we have created a problem with the open border and with the sanctuary city policies that have drawn unintended consequences. And now veterans, the mentally ill, drug addicts, they're not getting the government resources they need because they're being diverted to folks who are not in this country legally or who are manipulating the asylum process. So I think that needs to change. So I'm working hard on it. I'm taking it seriously. The safety of our communities is so important to me. It's one of the basic fundamentals that government should give its citizens, and I'm hard at work here in Congress doing it. So again, if you agree with, I'm going to give you another poll question here. So if you agree with my approach that border security is important, we need to be a country of rules and laws. We need to enforce those rules and laws, and we need to have a legal immigration system that is understandable, that's streamlined, that allows for folks to come into this country to seek opportunity legally. If you agree with that position, please press 1. And if you don't, I respect you. Listen, we're a diverse district. We have the equal number of Republicans and Democrats, and I respect that we view the world a certain way. And there's a lot of independents too, and we appreciate everybody's opinion. If you agree with me about my border security approach, please, I'd like you to press 1. If you think there's a better approach, God bless, go ahead and press 2, and we'll get to those poll results later. Nevertheless, operator, do we have another question coming through? And if you want to ask a question, go ahead and press *3. And if you want to subscribe to our newsletter, press *6. But operator, Can you put Adam from Melville through, please?
Hey, Congressman, how are you? Congressman, can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear, Adam. Go ahead with your question, please, sir.
Okay, I think these forums are tremendous. I've listened to other calls. My question speaks to unity, and I respect the fact that there's a cord that runs through everything you say that really does try to get there. But even a common sense, moderate-minded, I don't mean moderate in the political spectrum, decent human being like yourself, very decent human being, I feel like falls prey to the dialogue that is so troubling this country, the magic words, the catchwords, the incendiary phrases, migrants and schools and all these hot button issues. I really think you're a good soul and a person who took this job for the right reason. Is there any way to just talk in a way that doesn't grab these catchwords, doesn't fall back to incendiary policy positions for either side? And I think just be you and talk about your family that came, your grandparents that came here and built the nation, and avoid Biden this and that. Nobody wants to hear it. Everybody's sick of it. We just want to be a country of Americans first, party second. I believe that. Maybe I'm naive. And I think there's a very good man inside of you that appeals to. Can you get to that dialogue, or is it just impossible in this environment? And thank you for taking my question. I appreciate it.
And thanks so much, Adam. I feel like you're reading my mind on some of these things. I appreciate the kind words and the feedback on this because it's important to me. Yeah, I have many conservative tendencies, but before I have any association with a political party or certainly an ideology, I'm an American who loves our country like a priest loves Jesus. So I'm here to fight every day to make sure our country is better. I try not to engage in the rhetoric. I do have some strong feelings about how the president and the Homeland Security Secretary are handling things like the border. I'm frustrated. Let me stick with that. I'm frustrated that they're not doing what has been a bipartisan endeavor in the past. And I don't mean to be rhetorical, and I don't mean to just enrage the issue, but I'm very, very frustrated. Congress has a bona fide oversight responsibility that when the executive branch is not enforcing the laws that the Congress and the people of the United States of America have agreed upon, Congress has a responsibility to conduct its oversight to ensure that it does enforce those laws. I think with respect to the border, it's much more black and white out there. And I don't mean to, on any given day, just engage in some rhetoric that is fanning the flames here. I want to find solutions that make our lives on Long Island more affordable, more safe, ensure that we remain the strongest and best country the world has ever known. These are the things that motivate me to do this job that is sometimes quite frustrating. I spend a lot of time away from my family to be here in Washington, to give back to our great country as my brother did in the Marines for 20 years, as my dad did as a cop, as both my grandfathers did as a cop, as I did as a Navy man for 11 years. That's what motivates me on a daily basis, is my love for our great country. And listen, I guess I'll apologize if from time to time I'm not the most perfect version of myself to keep my rhetoric without fanning the flames, but certain issues frustrate me. I try on a daily basis to be a part of a productive couple of groups to ensure that we find solutions to these problems. I think you'll be pleased that I'm part of a couple of different caucuses that are bipartisan caucuses. Two small groups. One of them is the Problem Solvers Caucus, one of them is the Four Country Caucus. And both have an equal number of Democrat and Republican members of Congress who are dedicated to talking with each other. And we meet once a week, maybe once every other week, meet over lunch generally, talk about policy issues. And we may not leave the room agreeing on things, and there have been policy measures that these groups have agreed upon in the past that have been monumental. We haven't gotten there in this Congress yet. The Problem Solvers Caucus was very key behind the infrastructure law. The Four Country Caucus has always been key behind promoting a good National Defense Authorization Act that helps keep our military funded, our nation secure. But groups like this, and the Four Country Caucus especially, is very meaningful to me in that the Four Country Caucus is about 30 of us, 15 Republicans, 15 Democrats. Every single one of us served in the military. And we come into these rooms with the understanding the country is way more important than certainly any one of us and definitely any one of our parties. And we try to tone the rhetoric down, find ways to work with each other on common issues that are good for the country. And I'm trying hard every day at that. I apologize when I fall short. It's a tough town. It's become a very partisan town. It's probably been that way for 5 or 10 years. But have some hope that groups like this will help ensure that we move forward in a stronger manner. Appreciate that. As we get ready for the next question, again, if you have a question, press *3. If you want to go on the newsletter, press *6. I want to give you some results from the last question. I always find this hard to believe, by the way, on the border. 84% of you on this call agree with my position on the border, that we are a nation of rules and laws. We ought to enforce those rules and laws, that we can be doing better. Our executive branch can be doing better enforcing those laws. Illegal immigration is a problem that is worthy of a solution from Congress. I appreciate that many of you agree with me. I appreciate that also 16% disagree with me and maybe have a different way of doing that. So I appreciate the feedback. Operator, can you put Brian from Ridge through, please?
Hello.
Hey, Brian, go ahead with your question, please, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for taking my call. I'm a lifelong Long Islander, been here all my life, owned a few homes, and I've seen electric costs rising and rising over the years, and it's impossible to keep making these payments. I used to pay like $150 a month, now I'm almost paying $500 a month in electric costs. I want to see what you can do or what you're possibly looking to do about curbing those costs in New York, especially on Long Island.
Thanks so much. Appreciate your call. This is a question I get a lot of the time, and I think it's important. I think that Congress can be part of the solution here. Now, listen, I'm a Republican, but I believe in all of the above energy strategy that helps develop every source of American energy. I want to support economic growth, and I want to help provide affordable and accessible energy sources to all Americans. You know, there's battery, there's wind, there's solar. I think that we should explore it all, and we should take advantage of everything that is on the table. Do it safely, of course. Because the main basis and a lot of the solutions I try working for in this office have a lot to do with national security, have a lot to do with affordability. Those are the two things that help guide me on a given day. And I think that increasing American energy independence will not only increase the supply of energy, it'll bring the prices down, but a correlated benefit of that is that we got to buy less oil from Russia, from Venezuela, from the Middle East. And God bless, those folks often don't share our values. We ought to be buying more stuff from the folks who share our values whenever we can to buy it from America. The less we have to depend on adversaries for things like energy, the stronger our national security gets. Now, I'll tell you this too. We are sitting on a 20-year supply of energy underneath our feet. God bless the United States of America with a 20-year supply. 40-something billion barrels of proven oil reserves are underneath our feet as Americans. I think we should get that oil out of the ground safely, by the way. You know, we have a lot of protection and restrictions on how to do it and how to do it safely. They don't have those restrictions in Venezuela. They don't have them in Russia. They don't have them in the Middle East. We can get those resources out of the ground safely here. It'll help bring Americans' energy prices down, both at the pump and what it costs to heat and cool your home, and it will increase our national security. So these are the things upon which I'm most focused, because I think that they serve the dual purpose of bringing prices down as well as improving our national security. So totally appreciate the question. Operator, can you put another question through? I think I'm seeing Adam from Wisconsin, please.
Hi, Congressman. Thank you for taking my question. Can you hear me, Congressman?
Yeah, go ahead with your question, Adam.
Okay, yeah, thanks for taking my question. I have a couple of questions, actually, for you. I've obviously been involved in politics for a very long time. I was a political science major in college. These are things that interest me. One thing that really I'm concerned about, or actually that really interests me, is the fact that local government has term limits, but yet Congress doesn't have term limits. I'm not sure about why that is. I mean, without naming people, there's people that have been in Congress for 50 years. I don't believe that they're benefiting the people in any way, shape, or form by being there for 50 years. I believe that they're, basically benefiting themselves. in terms of insider trading, which is another thing that we know several Congress people have taken advantage of. But things like that, and I just don't think that they're effective anymore after being there for a certain amount of years, whether it be 8 years, 10 years, 12 years. I think that should be enough. I know Congress is a 2-year term limit, and the Senate is 6 years. So maybe they can make it an 8-year term limit,
Thanks so much for your question. Let me go into term limits, and let me go into stocks. So term limits, I'm probably one of the few members of Congress that ever voted in favor of and actually implemented a term limits law before he or she came to Congress. When I was a lonely old village trustee, the very first piece of legislation I sponsored and passed was a village term limits law for village trustees that enabled that required no more than 2 4-year terms for village trustees. I believe that whenever possible, you should get in and get out. I think that this place and our nation's capital is better run by fresh people with new ideas, and I have supported a number of term limits pledges, but I can tell you what, there's probably not enough support here in Washington to get them through. I recognize, Adam, your point of having fresher ideas here to help promote a better longevity for America. I think that is a good thing. I would support it. I think I've co-sponsored a number of term limits bills here in Washington, and I think that premise is quite good. There are some exceptions to the rules. There are some folks who have been here for decades who I think are doing a heck of a job for their constituents, for our country. But I think that your point is well taken, Adam, and I would support term limits. On the stocks, this should be a no-brainer. There's no reason that a member of Congress should be using inside information to make his or her family rich. There's 100 or more bills out there that will prevent members of Congress from doing so. I think I've sponsored a number of them. But what I did was this: rather than wait for a bill to become law, I sold all my stocks before I got sworn in. When you're a member, you sit in a bunch of different briefs, some of them classified, some of them not. But you have access to non-public information routinely that could affect one's ability to trade stocks, commodities, futures, whatever, and you can make a lot of money with that non-public information. I want to hold myself to a higher standard. I sold all my stocks before I got sworn in just to ensure that there was never any sort of appearance of this of impropriety here. So I agree with your point. I think it'll be a while before that bill becomes law in Congress, but you can count on me. Your congressman's holding to himself to a standard that I think you'd appreciate. So appreciate the question. Operator, do we have another one, please? We got time for another 1 or 2 questions here tonight. If you haven't got an opportunity to ask your question tonight, feel free to correspond with my office. Sign up for that newsletter by pressing *6. Send us, an email through my website. You can send us any sort of mail you'd like. We've gotten pretty good at responding to everything. We first got here the first couple of months. The queue was big. We've responded to probably 90% of the correspondence we've gotten so far. It's been tens of thousands of pieces of correspondence. But please, if you have a specific issue which has not yet been addressed on tonight's call or a previous call, please go ahead and send us an email or send us a letter. We want to correspond with you. One of the last couple of calls we're going to have tonight is from Lori Ann. Please put Lori Ann through.
Hello?
Hey, Lori Ann, it's Nick. Go ahead with your question, please.
Okay. So you kind of touched on it with the border business and all that, but I'm a mom who lost a son to overdose. I'm I'm okay with people coming legal here and getting a life better for their family. I'm not okay with China sending ingredients to, say, anywhere without any repercussions to make fentanyl and then having these pills pressed, these counterfeit pills, and people, I think it's up to 6 or 8, as far as the DEA said, 6 or 8 counterfeit pills out of every 10 that a kid for the first time might want to try Adderall to stay up all night. You have your drug users, which my son was, or you have your people just getting something they have no idea. That's called murder, but that's just my opinion. What is your take on it? What do you need help with as far as us helping you? And what do you think? What could you What do you think? How do we go from here? How do we save lives? 110,000 people in 22. It's getting.
Yeah, Lorianne, first off, I'm so sorry for your family's loss. I can only imagine the hurt that your family's going through, and I appreciate you telling me about that. You're sharing it with me on this call here, and with our neighbors here in this district. You know where I stand on the border, and I'm going to tell you this again. I think that securing that border is the first step to ensuring that the fentanyl being produced in China and being smuggled across our southwest border, securing that border is the first thing that we should do on this issue. The fentanyl is coming through multiple ways. It's coming through at ports of entry. It's coming through in between ports of entry. We need to get better. We need to ensure that we hire more Border Patrol folks. We have better technology to do digital scans and X-ray scans, to use technology to ensure that when they're coming through at ports of entry, that we are going through vehicles in the right manner to detect these illegal and deadly poisonous drugs. But it's also between the ports of entry that are a problem as well, Lorianne. So, and you know how big of an issue it is, because this has impacted your family personally. Again, my deepest condolences on this. I'm working hard for you. I know the stats too, the broader national stats. 100,000 Americans have died from fentanyl poisoning. And there's a misnomer out there. There's a misnomer that, like, this is incidental drug use and, you know what? No, regular illegal drugs are being laced with this poison that is killing Americans. This is not how it's supposed to be. 100,000 young folks between the ages of 18 and 45. It's the number one cause of death for folks between ages of 18 and 45, and we need to put a stop to it. Just this week, I helped pass the Stop Chinese Fentanyl Act, which would penalize Chinese drug companies who engage in this activity. We need to hold all people accountable. Like I said, I think there's a border issue that the Congress has some oversight in. The executive branch certainly has a responsibility of. But we need to get to these Chinese companies who are putting this poison into our system and killing our young folks. And I think that we should exercise all of our options on this. So, Lorianne, again, my family's deepest sympathies to you. I do appreciate you sharing that with me and everybody on this call. I hope that we can get better as a nation, that both parties can work together to help solve this for your family and for many others. So thanks so much, Lorianne. We have time, I think, operator, for one more question. It's getting late. We're past 7:45, but we have time for one more question. I'm getting the shrugged shoulder look from here. We have Evelyn. Can you put Evelyn through here, please? Evelyn, go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for taking my call. I really think that we need to protect our rights to vote, and I think cleaning up the roll calls and cleaning it, having, voter ID would help in the state of New York.
All right, Evelyn, thanks so much. I appreciate that. And few people in Congress have the election law experience that I have. I'm not good at much, but I'm good at that. For 7 years, I served as our county's elections commissioner. It's a bipartisan endeavor in the state of New York. Each county has a bipartisan board of elections to administer elections. It's one of the reasons I think that New Yorkers can be confident in many aspects of their elections. With respect to voter ID, I think New York needs to do more. I think there's only like 13 or 14 states which do not yet have a voter ID law, and voter IDs are in two different styles. There's photo voter ID or non-photo, like bring in like a utility bill or a property tax bill or something else that ties you to your property. 36 states, I think, have either a non-photo or a photo voter ID law. I think that's totally common sense. Some folks have called it racist. I don't think it's racist at all. It may have been that racial groups 30, 40, 50 years ago didn't have access to IDs. It may have been that time ago that folks who were not necessarily well off didn't have access to IDs. That's no longer the case, especially with the impoverished. Anybody who needs or gets government assistance has to have an ID to get that assistance. So if there's one socioeconomic group of folks who have IDs, it is the impoverished. So those traditional arguments are why we can't have voter ID, I think are not proper. They're not applicable. And by the way, it would make the voting process not only more secure, you'd be able to more accurately rely on the person who is there at a polling place is who they say they are, but it would make things a heck of a lot quicker. Like you would go to the voting line, you'd swipe your ID, you'd check in, they'd give you a ballot, you'd be on your way, rather than, by the way, great people who staff our polling places. We know how long it takes sometimes to find your name. On some roll books, I have a space in my LaLota and some I don't, so sometimes it takes them quite often to find my name. And I did this even when I was the elections commissioner. The poll folks would take 2 or 3 minutes sometimes to find my name. By the way, great people working hard, but like if you just swiped in with your ID, it'd be a heck of a lot easier. It would be more reliable. We should have it, but there's not a consensus on this. There's not a consensus from Republicans. Almost every one of us wants voter ID, but more than half of Republicans don't want to federalize elections. Most Republicans want to separate the federal powers from the state-run elections. And while we conceptually agree with photo ID and voter ID, many of my colleagues are reticent to actually change state election laws because they consider themselves federalists who want to ensure there's federalism, rather, in the way that we administer our democracy, and they don't want to change those laws. So that's that on voter ID. I will tell you, absolutely, we should be clearing our voter rolls. I support the United States Social Security Administration sending their deceased data to state and county boards of elections to ensure that when the federal government becomes aware of somebody dying, that we communicate that fact with local boards of election and use that as an instruction to remove a name from a voting roll. The most up-to-date, most concise database on who dies in this country is the Social Security database. I think the federal government should share that data quickly and efficiently with local boards of election so we can take deceased voters off the rolls so we can have greater certainty in our elections, and we can ensure that folks who are no longer with us aren't being voted for. So totally appreciate the question. It's 7:50. We're running out of time tonight. We're going to do another one of these in a month or two. But let me tell you this. Thank you. Not only for dialing into this call or getting our call and dialing in, but for being awesome Long Islanders, for trusting me with this office, ensuring that I'm here fighting for you every day. The things I'm focused on, national security, border security, affordability, our quality of life. These are the things I'm coming to work with every day, trying to find some consensus in different groups to ensure that we as Long Islanders and we as Americans can take advantage of every opportunity for ourselves and our families. I do believe we're the greatest nation the world has ever known, but it takes folks at all levels of government to ensure that we keep it that way. And part of that is me being accountable to you, making myself available to you, answering your questions, ensuring that I hear your feedback and consider it when I'm voting on things in the nation's capital. So thanks so much for your trust. Thanks so much for being on tonight. And I'll check in with you on another Townhall in a month or two. Thanks so much. Enjoy the night.